Producers and songwriters, let's talk about how to make your chord progressions 10 times more exciting, 10 times more interesting, 10 times more engaging than your usual tired, boring, basic ideas. You ready to learn some shit? Let's get it. What's going on, producers? Welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is BruceBeats. Welcome. This is your new home for learning baller keys for baller productions. And when I say baller, I mean being able to take what's in here and play it on here without the traditional rigmarole of the classical approach that doesn't apply to the actual music you're making. I'm talking about the R&B productions, the lo-fi, the electro, the house, the pop, the country. We want to be able to play piano specifically for those styles so that when we're recording in the DAW, when we're collabing with other artists, we can have that specific level of musicianship at our disposal. That is my goal with this channel. So if that sounds cool to you, hit that subscribe button so you can get notified when videos like this drop. And let's get into this lesson today.
How exactly are we going to make chord progressions 10 times more exciting?
Well, to understand what makes them more exciting, we have to understand what makes them boring. So let's talk about that bit first. So when you're listening to a track and other people are listening to your track and they're saying it's boring, what they're really saying is that it's too repetitive. There's no variation and there's no change over time. When something just keeps repeating and repeating and repeating with no variation, it becomes boring. It becomes mundane. The excitement wears off by the third repetition. If you don't change something by the third time we hear it, and at minimum by the fourth time, I'm already bored. And everybody else in the world is already bored. So we want to come up with a way where we can add some variation and add some change so that our ideas aren't boring, that they aren't overly repetitive. But there's a caveat. When we create, we always want to have a theme, and that theme is something that repeats over and over again, much like Beethoven's ba 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 boom, ba 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 boom. That's short, long, right? Or we could take Biggie Smalls. That repeats over and over again throughout the track. So how do we balance repetition for this theme and variation so it doesn't get boring? The answer is very simple. We must think in terms of form. Form is what gives our music a structure from beginning to end that we can follow, and that also allows us to know exactly where to throw in that variation so that we're not interrupting the theme, but we're not repeating the theme to death where we don't bore the listener. Now, before we go through some examples, I want to mention this idea of form can be applied to melody, it can be applied to rhythm, it can be applied to the song as a whole. We're going to specifically talk about it in the context of chord progressions, but just know it can be applied to every other facet of music. So the way that we talk about form is through different letters. So for example, that's idea A. And so if I play something different, that's now idea B. So we can see that A is one idea, B is a completely different idea, and then C would be a completely different idea, and then D would be a completely different idea. So you can see if we were to make a song that just went A, B, C, D, there's very little repetition there, so it would be very hard to grab onto something. So what we can do is there are a couple common forms that we can use to create cool ideas. And neither form is right or wrong. It's really just dependent on what feels best for that composition. So let's go ahead and play with this A idea and see what we come up with. So here's that idea. I really like that. I'm actually gonna repeat that again because that sounded really cool. So we have That's feeling good to actually repeat one more time. I really like how that would sound if we repeat it 3 times. Now, remember what I said before. If you don't change something by the 3rd time we hear it, and at minimum by the 4th time, I'm already bored. If I were to just repeat this again, I really just have A. So if I do want to repeat this here, I absolutely must change this last one. And I'll just follow my ear to find out what the change is going to be. So let's see. And now we come back to the beginning. So do you see how like when I landed back at the beginning, I did that drum fill and then we said, and like that became exciting again? The reason that this A is exciting again is because I changed the idea, played something completely different, and then I circled back to the beginning. And by throwing in this change, it now makes the A idea fresh again. So that specific idea would be A-A-A-B. And then now I can loop that and have something really cool. Let's come up with a different A now. So I'm gonna come up with a whole different idea because again, this is very context dependent. So let's see, what if I played something like... I really like that, repeat. Let's change it here. What if I repeat that? That's cool. So what I ended up there with is A-A-B-B because we had our first A. And I was like, ooh, I really like that. Let's repeat it. And now, on the third time, let's change it so we can keep it interesting. And what I thought of was just go to a different chord, right? So, and then that sounded really nice. I was like, why don't we just repeat that? We can kind of even hear it looping back to the beginning. Like, I almost wanted to play it again. And so again, by having this repeat, what we did on the second time is we now established it as a theme. When we just play it the first time through, it's just some notes. But then the second time, okay, now it's starting to feel like something. We just established it as a theme. And then we can immediately change it up by playing something else, and this keeps the listener engaged. And then I'm like, you know what? That's beautiful. We can repeat it one more time. And then when we circle back to the beginning, we're back to that main theme that we had. And this gets a really nice blend of repetition of the theme, but variation so it doesn't become mundane and boring. Let's come up with a different A now to see if we can make a different form. So let's say we have something like... I like that. So that's a good A right there. So here we go. Now I'm kind of feeling like I want to change it a little bit. Cool, so we have... Now let's throw some change in there. So we have now A and then B. So we have very little repetition. We kind of have some repetition within the chords because it starts out kind of the same. Right? But we introduced some change right there. So I think it'd be nice to kind of repeat A again. And then now I'm thinking, if I were to do A, B, A, B, it'd be a little boring because A and B are kind of similar. There's only one chord that's different about B than A. So I would actually love to throw a C in here. So what if I go to D flat? That's kind of cool. And then G flat. That's kind of cool. You could do almost whatever you want. So let's actually play with a couple different C's here, just for the example here. We'll do C1 and C2, just so that we can see, by making this C, when I come back to the beginning, it makes the A interesting again. So I'm just gonna make something up, hopefully it'll sound good, and we'll do A, B, A, C1, and then A, B, A, C2. See how this is now exciting again? Now we do something different. So I didn't like that C2 as much. I liked this E flat chord. I didn't necessarily like coming to this A flat chord. So that would be something I would change if I'm trying to write this and make it something cool. But as you can see, like that would be the spot where the change would go. And then I would just play around and figure out what exactly it is I want to play in that spot. And I have that direction to now go in. So here we have three incredibly common forms that we can use for melodies, for chord progressions, and for rhythms. We have A, 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 B.
Repeat it. Repeat it. Change it.
We have AABB.
Repeat. Change. Repeat.
have A, B, A, C. You see how each one of those felt different, but each one of those felt professional and cohesive as a loop that wasn't too drawn out, it wasn't too repetitive, but it had enough repetition to establish a theme and enough variation so that it remained interesting. Now I want to stress this one more time. When you're creating, you don't necessarily want to think,
I'm gonna make something right now that's AABB. I'm gonna make something that's AAAB.
because you may make an idea and it may feel more natural to change at one point than it does another. And if you're so rigid and trying to create something that's AAAB, but your idea doesn't naturally fit that, then you're just fighting musical intuition. So you notice when I created number 2 and 3, I purposefully didn't plan out what I was gonna play because I wanted to create it on the fly and see what it felt like, see where the music took me naturally. And before we go, just to give some quick examples of how we can actually use this for rhythm or how we can use this for melody. And so I'll just beatbox a couple things for you because I want to have some fun. So how would this sound if I created an AABB drum groove? Let's go ahead and make a first measure. So like, so there's my A. Now I need a B. So now we have those two ideas. So let's go. You see how that works? So now those two things can go back and forth and they're both distinct from each other. They're different. I'm trying to make them different on purpose. Like this one had a lot less hi-hat than this one had. So it makes it interesting when they go back and forth between each other. Let's do one more example for melody. Let's say I wanted to create an A-B-A-C melody. So let's take maybe something in G minor again, kind of fill in this key for whatever reason. And let's say we have kind of like an arpeggioed kind of melody. So like, that's cool. So that's A. So I'm actually gonna change this. Perfect example of what I was just saying. This for me is feeling like A, and I kind of want to repeat that A. So, repeat. And then now I would change to B, because that felt good. And then we could go C there. Boom. I was just following my ear. I'm like, okay, I want it to change here. So we have A. C. Hey, there we go. So I found a way to make C even more different because we have all these like 16th notes or, you know, fast notes, right? The whole time we're going really fast. But for C, when I introduce some change there, when I introduce some contrast in C, when I go back to these notes, they're gonna feel fresh again. So there you go, there's a number 4 for you, just following your musical intuition. And this is exactly why playing through your ideas from beginning to end is really important, because I don't think I ever would have come up with that C idea unless I tried to play everything beginning all the way to the end and experience how it sounded like if it was the first time I ever heard it. Because if you notice, I made the A, and then I paused, and then I wrote the B, and then I paused, and I wrote the C. But I never played it all through. And you could even see it in my face if you rewind the video. When I play it all through, I'm kind of just listening to it as I'm playing it. And then so that's why when I got to the end, I kind of heard that thing, but I never would have heard it unless I played the idea all the way through. So that's a little pro tip for you, whether you're playing on the keys or you're, doing something in the DAW in your production. Always listen so you can get the context of the entire section. It's really easy to get lost in the details, but when you zoom out, that's when you get the big picture. If this video has been valuable to you, I actually have an entire module with several lessons on form and how it applies to melody, how it applies to rhythm, and how it applies to chord progressions and all these things that we talked about today inside the Piano for Producers Academy, and it's inside Melody Mastery specifically. So if you like this approach to learning keys for production, you are going to love the Piano for Producers Academy. It's literally the highest quality music education you'll find without breaking the bank. So click the link in the description and join today. It'll be the best musical decision you make all year. Make sure you like this video and subscribe to the channel for more content just like this, and I'll see you on the next one. This is Bruce Beats. Peace!